Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you another faction-focused video. The third of this portion of series, which is focusing on destroyers. And the third is going to be the Lokhust Lord. We've talked about the Lokhust destroyers. We've talked about the heavy destroyers. Now we need to talk about the character that can join them, the leader of the Lokhust Lord, in all of his glory. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications to get notified on all the content that I bring here on the channel as I continue moving through all of the destroyer units and then eventually accumulate this into a destroyer-themed base list to take on probably Lane here on the channel in about a week. But for right now, let's go back through a couple of the destroyer units that we've talked about so far so we can talk about the Lokhust Lord. So with the Lokhust, the just standard Lokhust destroyers, they have lethal hits. So 3 shots apiece, strength 5, AP2, 2 damage with lethal hits. So 6s are going to auto wound. When we look at the Lokhust heavy destroyers, we have both options of sustained hits on the Exterminator, and then we also have lethal hits on the Gauze Destructor. Again, critical, giving you a 6-up. So that is the very, very interesting mechanic that this Lokhust Lord is going to help emphasize for these units. But let's take a look at him in general and talk about what he is, what he does, and also what he costs. All right, starting off with his stat line. So the Lokhust Lord has a 7-inch move, toughness, 6, and the 3-up save that we've seen from all the other Locusts in the army. He comes with 6 wounds, pretty standard, and a 6-up leadership with an objective control value of 2. So not a whole lot extra from that. I mean, it's a standard stat line that we've seen for the Lokhust so far going forward, except for the added wounds because he's a character. Now, aside from that, he can only join Locusts and Lokhust heavies. So what is he bringing to them? What is he giving to them? So let's go through everything real fast on him so we can talk about what he does. So first of all, his guns and his weapons. He can either have a Staff of Light or the Lord's Blade. So Staff of Light is the only ranged option that he has, with an 18-inch range, 3 attacks, ballistic skill 2, strength 5, AP2, 1 damage. In combat, that same staff is going to have 4 attacks with a weapon skill 2, strength 5, AP2, and 1 damage. The Lord's Blade comes with devastating wounds, 4 attacks, weapon skill 2, strength 8, AP3, 2 damage. Personally, I prefer the Lord's Blade. I feel like we got the guns. You're putting the guns on the unit anyways. Might as well have a little bit of combat to be able to kind of fish them out. So if something tags you that's wimpy but shutting you down from shooting, at least that Lord stands a chance of being able to pick those guys up. But the combat potential is not really what we're taking him for. This is what we're taking him for. So he is a leader, as already said, and he can join only the Lokhust and Lokhust heavy destroyers. He has reanimation protocol, because why wouldn't he? Destroyer Cult. While this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, a successful unmodified roll of 5+ scores a critical hit. And then Driven by Hatred. Each time this model makes an attack that targets an enemy that is below half strength, you can reroll the hit and reroll the wound. So the second ability, I feel like I forget it all the time. I forget that it's even there. Because that's a very unique situation, is that he himself can reroll when the unit's below half strength. And I feel like that situation is very, 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 very unique. Possibly if there was a Lokhust variant that was combat potential, but we don't have it. We have Scorpex for that. Then I could see that possibly playing into him more. But because it's a selfish ability, I forget about it all the time. I feel like it's one of those things that one of the game I'm going to look and go, oh, wait a minute, you're below half strength. Don't I get something? And I'll go and check it and go, huh, cool, I get to reroll. And then I'll hit with everything, wound with everything, and I won't even need the rerolls. Because that's how it always goes, you know. When you do all the buffs and everything, you look and go, oh, well, the dice said I didn't need to spend all the command points. But the other ability, the Destroyer Cult, as it's called, now we're looking at giving our Exterminators 5-up crit sustained. Destructors and Gauze Blasters, 5-up crits for lethal. That's pretty nice. Now you can get around that low strength of the lower strength of the Gauze Blaster to be able to get through and just automatically hit to be able to get those 2 damage through against toughness, higher vehicles and stuff like that. I think the ultimate winner is the Exterminator on the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. Being able to trigger that sustained with so many dice is just going to be so much more value out of that. It's just so much. Not to mention the fact that because the Lokhust Lord is a character, this means he has options for enhancements. And what great enhancement would it be to put on a unit that you want to at least get within 18 inches to get double tap for your rapid fire? Veil of Darkness. I really feel, and that's a strong combo that I'm going to be bringing here on the channel soon, and I really look forward to it because it's interesting. It's very interesting. Now, the big downside to him is going to be his point cost, coming in at 85 points, and it makes it kind of tough. But before I jump into that, look real quick, his other little war gear options and abilities he gets. He does still have access to a 5-up Feel No Pain with, I'm going to butcher this, Philastery, and it gives him a 5-up Feel No Pain. In my opinion, not that great. He's a character, by the time he gets to that point, it's just eh. And considering the fact that you can only take one of these, you get either or, I think the Resurrection Orb is better, especially because you're not going to put the Lord by himself. He's going to be with a unit, and you might as well have the ability to reanimate during your opponent's turn as well as your own. So I really, just to me, right now, at this current point, the Resurrection Orb is just like, you get one basically for free. You might as well take the Res Orb because he's going to be with the squad. Now, when we talk about loadouts with him, he's 85 points. So it's kind of tough. You put him with, when you take Lokhust Destroyers, your regular guys, what are their roles going to be? If you take the single 30-point single model, obviously you don't want to attach a character to it because you're already trying to make it cheap. So he's not getting a character. 3-man regular destroyer, not really going to be seeing that on them. There's not really a lot of damage and value behind it. So you're just going to probably put the 3-mans out there and maybe hope that he picks up off the Sovereign, or he just, they just do well by themselves at being only 90 points for 3 guys. I mean, that's not bad. Less than 100 points for 9 wounds, that they still have a 3-up ballistic skill as is. They're not that bad at 90 points. Now, the Lokhust Heavies. These are the ones that we really want to make sure do the job. When you look at the Gauze Destructor and you look at the Exterminator, I almost feel like, yes, he's an absolute auto include for those 3 guys. There are 85 points to get that 5 crit and that extra body in there and the Res Orb. All of it is good. The Gauze Destructors, on the other hand, typically most lists are running a Sovereign. It's a very strong piece of war gear, very strong enhancement, and there's a ton of options for who to put it on. So in some way, shape, or form, a unit's going to be in your army that you go, well, here you go, 30 points, boom. Now I have an aura that counts me as being with character, +1 to hit, as well as strat buffs. So for the Lokhust Heavies, you can get away with not having him. Being able, for the Gauze Destructors that is, being able to crit on a 5-up and automatically wound, while it's cool, in my opinion, is not necessary. The weapon is a high strength, so you do really have an ability to be able to already damage those things, as well as the fact of re-rolling 1s to wound if you're shooting at a vehicle or monstrous creature. So in all, I don't feel like he's giving as much value to the Lokhust Heavy Destroyers for the points that you're spending on him when he almost costs as much as 2 additional Lokhust Heavies. So when you ask yourselves at the end of it, which is more value, and especially if you're giving him an enhancement right there, then he already is costing more than 2 Lokhust Heavy Destroyers. And with it being so close in points, literally 15 points difference, what's more value? 2 Lokhust Heavies or a Lokhust Lord with your Lokhust Heavies? For me, I would rather have the extra Locust Heavies. Having the extra shots seems good. Seems good. Extra las cannon downfield sounds pretty good to me. So I think he's in a rough spot that he doesn't find a good home with those Locust Heavies. Now the Exterminators, great place for him. Great place for him. And right there, 85 points for that guy in that unit, I do believe is great. Being able to bring that Resurrection Orb, so when your opponent hits and doesn't completely kill, you can reanimate during their turn as well as your own. Being able to veil the unit so you don't have to dedicate it or put it in strategic so it's available to you when you want it at your opponent's end phase, I should say, picking them up and dropping them down during your turn, but also gives them deep strike, which they normally wouldn't have access to. And then being able to crit on 5s for the sustained hits is just massive, 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 massive amount of damage. These guys are anti-infantry, and they can really, really shred. When I run them, I will 100% have a Lokhust Lord with that squad. Now, the Destroyers, when we get into the realm of taking a 6-man Destroyer squad, it seems compelling to take a Lokhust Lord at that point. From what I noticed when I ran them, is that you're getting the Locusts, regular Locusts, I think are pretty decent because of the fact that they're cheaper. And I think by buying the Lokhust Lord and putting him with that squad, you're taking away one of the benefits to running Locust Destroyers, and that is that they're 30 points a model. I'm starting to get to a realm where I think that Locust Destroyers can be very good, but I think the Locust Destroyers have to run by themselves. I don't think a Lord does well with them. I could be wrong, but I feel like that Lord just handicaps them. One, it makes the squad bigger. So now it takes it from 6 and the blast and the coherency rulings to now 7. And now you're looking at a unit that's got to be within 2 inches of everybody for that reason. Where otherwise you might be able to stretch them out and hide them better. But again, those big bases are hard to hide in their own right. On top of that, because you get that squad so big, it makes it even more difficult to find a piece of terrain to hide behind, and it allows them to get picked off very easily. These guys are still relatively fragile. Even though they have a toughness 6, you're not getting 10 of them. You have 6 or 3. So you want to make sure that at least you have more control over when your opponent is able to hit them and not them getting hit. So I feel like they can do fine not having that extra critical damage and just getting +1 to hit off of the Sovereign or something else. But I don't think the Lokhust Lord does well even with the 6-man. I think the 6-man, it ends up becoming just bam, 180 points for the squad. Bam, 85 points for the model. Here's a lot of points invested in here that your opponent could get an angle on and pick off and take down. In a recent matchup, my Locust got tied up with Magnus the entire game and did nothing. Nothing at all. So, and I feel like that's still a realm where we get into is that if you tag these guys, they shut down. Where opposed to the 3-mans or taking smaller squads, if they get tagged, okay, they may shut down, but at the same time, too, your opponent may just straight up remove them, and then you can shoot them with something else. So that's kind of my general synopsis and feel about the Locust subtype in 40K right now. There's a lot of cool stuff there. There's a lot of good damage output there. It's a matter of how it all gets put together. And for me, the Lokhust Lord, the final icing on the cake, has a great job with the Exterminator Locust Heavies, and kind of overkill with the regular Locust Destroyers, or the regular Locust Heavies with Gauze Destructors, and probably a little too expensive to create a 6-man of Locust Heavies, of Locust Destroyers. Personally, for me, what I'm looking at for my list is I'm going to have a Lokhust Lord with a squad of the Exterminators. I will be taking the Locust Destroyers. I will probably am going to take a couple, like a 3-man and then 2 singles to be able to float around the field. And then I'm going to run some Locust Destroyers, but I'm going to run them in 3-man pockets so they're able to float around the field and just shoot and eliminate targets on specific points. And if they get stuck or taken out, it's only a 90-point loss to my army as opposed to 180 plus a character. So those are my initial thoughts with the Locusts. I've run them a little bit. I love the models, hate the bases, hate the fly bases, as everyone said. I love the guys themselves. They're really cool, kind of stoic. I look forward to hopefully a new kit with them, one that gets away from the green beams. They've been cool looking, but it's time. It's time for them to get an upgrade. The bases are horrendous, and I mean, there is some conversions out there that can be done, but I'm just hoping it's time for us to see a new model. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed. We'll be moving over into the score packs next. We've covered the Ophidians. We've covered the Hexmark. We got score packs next, and I got a lot to say about these guys. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.